Why does your mind keep running even when your life is perfectly still? Ethan asked himself this question at 2:17 a.m., staring at the ceiling as his thoughts raced like cars on a highway with no exit, replaying conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, turning small moments into heavy burdens that pressed down on his chest, and no matter how hard he tried to silence them, they only grew louder, like waves crashing over and over again, refusing to settle, and the more he fought them, the more trapped he felt, as if his own mind had become a room with no doors, no windows, just endless noise echoing back at him. And in the quiet darkness of his apartment, with the city asleep and nothing actually wrong in his life, Ethan realized something that scared him even more than the thoughts themselves. He wasn't afraid of what was happening around him. He was afraid of what was happening inside him. And the question that lingered in the still air was simple, but heavy. What if the chaos wasn't outside at all, but something he was unknowingly holding on to? Every single moment the next morning, nothing around Ethan had changed. The same apartment, the same job waiting for him, the same quiet streets outside his window. Yet inside his mind the noise continued, subtle but relentless, as if it had never paused. While brushing his teeth, he replayed a conversation from 3 days ago, wondering if he had said something wrong. On his way to work, he imagined future failures that had not happened, and at his desk, he found himself reading the same email 3 times without understanding a single word, because another thought had already pulled him away. It was not one big fear, but 1,000 small ones stacking together, each one whispering what if, what if, what if, until even the simplest moment felt heavy, like carrying something invisible in his hands all day long, something no one else could see, but he could feel every second. During lunch he sat alone, watching people laugh and talk freely, and he wondered how they could seem so present, while he felt trapped somewhere else entirely, lost between the past he could not change and the future he could not control. And that was when it became clear to him. This was not just stress, it was a pattern, a loop that kept feeding itself. The more attention he gave his thoughts, the stronger they became, and the stronger they became, the more real they felt, until he could no longer tell the difference between what was actually happening and what his mind kept creating. And deep down, a quiet realization began to form. Maybe the problem was not that his thoughts existed, but that he never stopped following them wherever they went. By the time evening came, Ethan felt exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix. His body was still, but his mind had been running for miles all day, chasing thoughts that led nowhere. And as he walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, he noticed something unsettling. Nothing truly bad had happened, no real danger, no real failure. Yet his chest still felt tight, his breathing still shallow, and his thoughts still loud. It was as if his mind was reacting to a storm that did not exist, creating tension from nothing but imagined outcomes and remembered moments. And for the first time, he began to question it, not the thoughts themselves, but his relationship with them, because every time a thought appeared, he followed it without hesitation, as if it were a command instead of just a passing signal. He believed it, analyzed it, argued with it, and carried it with him long after it had served no purpose. And maybe that was the real weight he felt, not the thoughts, but the constant effort of holding on to each one, turning it over again and again, trying to solve what did not need solving. And as he paused on the sidewalk, watching a car pass by and disappear into the distance, a quiet question surfaced in his mind, one that felt different from the others, softer, but deeper. What if he did not have to follow every thought that came into his head? And what if the exhaustion he felt was not from life itself, but from never letting a single thought simply pass that night? Instead of going straight home, Ethan kept walking until he reached a quiet park at the edge of the city, where the noise of traffic faded into the background, and the air felt lighter. He sat down on an old wooden bench, his thoughts still moving, still pulling at him, but something inside him had shifted. He was no longer chasing them as quickly as before, and as he stared at a small stream flowing gently nearby, he noticed an older man sitting just a few feet away, calm, still, watching the water as if nothing else existed. There was something different about him, not in what he was doing, but in how he was being, as if the world had slowed down around him. After a few moments, the man turned slightly and looked at Ethan with a quiet, knowing expression, not intrusive, not judgmental, just present. And without any introduction, he spoke in a soft voice. You look tired, not in your body, but in your mind. Ethan let out a small breath, almost a laugh, because for the first time, someone had said exactly what he could not explain, and before he could respond, the man added gently, Tell me, are you trying to control something that was never meant to be controlled? Ethan hesitated for a moment, then spoke quietly. I try to stop my thoughts, but they keep coming back, stronger every time. The man nodded gently, as if he had heard this many times before. Of course they do, he said, his voice calm and steady. Because you are treating them like enemies instead of what they really are. Ethan frowned slightly, confused. Then what are they? He asked. The man did not answer right away. Instead he leaned forward, picked up a small leaf from the ground, and held it in his hand for a moment before placing it carefully on the surface of the stream. The leaf floated effortlessly, carried by the current without resistance, and the man pointed to it. Watch closely, he said. Ethan's eyes followed the leaf as it drifted slowly, moving around small rocks, never stopping, never fighting the water, just flowing with it. Did the leaf decide where to go? The man asked. Ethan shook his head. No, he replied softly, and the man smiled. Then why do you believe your thoughts should obey you? He said. And for a brief moment, Ethan felt something loosen inside him, as if a truth was beginning to surface. But he could not fully grasp it, yet the man let the silence linger as the leaf continued drifting farther down the stream, becoming smaller with each passing second. Then he asked another question, his voice calm but precise. Tell me, can that leaf stop the river from moving? Ethan watched carefully, then shook his head. No, it cannot. The man nodded again. And can it hold onto the water, keep it from flowing away? Ethan answered softly, no. And the man turned slightly toward him, his eyes steady. Then why are you trying to stop your thoughts from moving, or hold on to the ones that have already passed? Ethan felt the question land deeper than before, because he realized that was exactly what he had been doing, stopping, analyzing, replaying, holding, as if every thought needed to be solved or controlled. The man continued gently. Your thoughts are not commands. They are movements, like the current. They arise, they pass. But the moment you try to control them, you step into the river and begin to struggle. Ethan looked back at the water, noticing how everything flowed without effort. And, for the first time, he began to see that the struggle was not coming from the thoughts themselves, but from his constant attempt to fight something that was never meant to be stopped. Ethan sat there in silence, watching the water move without hesitation, without resistance, and for the first time, he did not try to interpret it. He simply observed, and as another thought appeared in his mind, a familiar one, quiet but persistent, asking what if something goes wrong tomorrow. He noticed the urge to follow it, to analyze it, to turn it into something bigger, but he paused, just for a moment, and instead of chasing it, he let it be, and something unexpected happened. The thought did not grow, it did not tighten his chest, it simply drifted, like the leaf he had just seen, passing through without leaving weight behind. His breathing softened, his shoulders relaxed slightly, and he realized that the space he had been searching for was not somewhere outside. It was in that small gap between. Noticing a thought and choosing not to hold it, the man spoke again, gently. You see it now. And Ethan nodded slowly, not because he fully understood everything, but because he felt it, a subtle shift, a quiet release. And in that moment, he began to see that peace was not about stopping the mind, but about no longer clinging to what the mind produced. The man looked at Ethan with a calm, steady gaze and said softly, this is the truth most people never see. Your thoughts are not the source of your suffering. Your attachment to them is. Ethan felt those words settle deeply, because for so long he had believed that if he could just stop the thoughts, everything would be quiet. But now he saw something different. The thoughts had always been moving, coming and going like the current, but he was the one reaching out, grabbing each one, holding it, turning it into something heavier than it ever needed to be. The man continued. Anxiety begins the moment you believe every thought deserves your attention. Ethan watched the water again, noticing how nothing tried to stay, nothing tried to resist, everything simply moved. And for the first time, he understood that peace was not something to create. It was something that remained when he stopped interfering. The man smiled gently and added, You do not need to control your mind. You only need to stop believing that every thought is you. And in that moment, something inside Ethan became clear, not as an idea, but as a quiet knowing, a realization that changed the way he saw every thought that would ever come again the next morning. Ethan woke up, and for a brief moment, the familiar rush of thoughts returned, questions, worries, small echoes of yesterday trying to pull him back into the same cycle. But this time, something was different. He noticed them without immediately following, like watching clouds move across the sky instead of chasing them. And as he sat on the edge of his bed, he allowed each thought to come and go, without holding, without resisting, just observing, and slowly, the tightness in his chest did not grow the way it used to. It softened, fading before it could take over. Later that day, as he walked through the same streets, nothing around him had changed, the same people, the same noise, the same world, but inside, there was space, a quiet openness that had not been there before, and he realized that peace was never something he had to find. It was something that appeared when he stopped holding on to what was never meant to stay. And as another thought passed through his mind, he did not fight it. He did not follow it. He simply let it move, and in that simple act, he understood something that stayed with him long after. You are not your thoughts, and the moment you stop holding them, they lose the power to hold you.